Journal entry number 3 is going to be about narrators, and specifically about why did the author choose the narrator and why is that perspective relevant to the meaning of the story or to the theme, for example. Also, you could have also picked a slightly different question if you have more of an informational book, or maybe you feel like your section of the book tells a lot of information, and you can see that in the assignment description, and you can write about those questions as well. But for now, watch this video about The Giver. Great book. I read for this, where I was at. I read 2 chapters of where I was at in The Giver to address these questions, and that's what I'm going to talk about. The same for you. Just read where you're at in your book, for like however long you think. I read for 20 minutes, but however long you think, and then enough that you can answer this journal entry. Also, be sure to include text evidence. That always helps. Although for these journal entries right now, as long as you have about at least 100 words, 200 words is better, but at least 100, you'll just get the 5 participation points. Next week, you'll have to make one of these journal entries into 500 words. But for right now, you just get 5 participation points for doing it. Hopefully you can enjoy reading through this. So first, in your narrator, it's always important to identify which kind of narrator you have. And there's a link to this sheet in the assignment description in Canvas as well. So narrators come in 3 basic types of points of view. First person, meaning it's told like, I did this, I did that. Second person, you did it, you did this. The reader is the character in the story. Third person, it's told he or she, which the giver is third person. Limited, meaning only the narrator. The narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of only one character in the story. So it feels like the main character is the narrator. Like in The Giver, it feels like Jonas is the narrator. Objective, the narrator does not know the thoughts and feelings of any of the characters in the story. So this is like a play or movie. Omniscient, the narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of all the characters in the story. So it goes in and out of everything. So Jonas in The Giver, he's third person limited. And then these are my notes I took while I was reading because I like to take notes. It helps me keep track of things. I also took notes throughout the book. In the beginning, I did a lot of notes because I feel like the beginning generally uses a lot more notes. So as you can see, I have more notes in the beginning. And then the section I read today, I didn't leave as many notes. I just have like a couple sticky notes. And I actually put the sticky notes in after as I was doing my journal entry. So I would know what to write about. But like, see, I just got a line underlining. My notes definitely went down. So before I get started in the text, I just wrote a little bit about the narrator, or Jonas, the main character. He's pretty smart. He asks questions, but he doesn't know what he'll be picked to do for the rest of his life at this ceremony thing. So when they turn 12, they do the ceremony where the community decides, oh, this will be your career and what you're going to do for the rest of your life. He also likes to do what is right, which helps to highlight and address all of the rules of the community, which might relate to the theme of rules, good or bad. I don't know. So now I'm going to get into let's see. I'm going to get into why did the author choose this narrator and why is that perspective relevant to the meaning of the story. So I'm going to think about it. So I want to point out a couple passages. First off, just a little update from where we left off last time. So Jonas's father brings a baby home because Jonas's father works with babies in this newborn thing. And then when the babies turn 1, they are assigned a family. And so the mothers and fathers don't have children in the traditional sense. So they bring the baby home, and Jonas is like, the baby has eyes like me, because everybody has dark eyes except for Jonas and the baby. They have light eyes. And Jonas doesn't really know why that is, but he just wonders about it, which goes back to Jonas being smart and inquisitive. But he's also like, oh, maybe I shouldn't wonder about it. And then in the next chapter, he does his volunteer hours, which are required, but you can pick where you want to volunteer at. And he decides to go to this old people home with his friends and give old people baths. And old people are naked. And he just wonders, like, why is it okay for old people and babies to be naked, but not the rest of us? Which kind of shows the questions he asked. And then Jonas also doesn't know what happens to people when they are released. And I feel like that's kind of foreboding because they keep on talking about people being released. I'm like, Okay. So then that night, after helping the old people, he has a dream. And the next morning at breakfast, they have to tell the family about their dreams. So Jonas says he normally doesn't have dreams, but this time he did have a dream. And his dream was about his friend, who's a girl, and they were in a bathing room, and he wanted his friend, who was a girl, to take off her clothes and get in the bathtub. And he thought that was really weird, and he didn't understand it. And he felt like it was a wanting it, but he knew she shouldn't, and he's kind of confused. So, I feel like that part that he's confused, but he has to tell his dream, it kind of shows that Jonas is growing up. And I like how the author picked a character who's growing up, because it adds like that questioning thing. Like he's questioning his community. He's also questioning him growing up. But his mom explains it to him. And I think this is interesting. So the dad takes Jonas's little sister and they go off to school and work. And Jonas stays with his mom. Finally, she sat down beside him at the table. Jonas, she said with a smile, the feeling you described as the wanting, it was your first stirrings. Father and I have been expecting it to happen to you. It happens to everyone. It happened to Father when he was your age, and it happened to me. It will happen someday to Lily. And very often, Mother added, it begins with a dream. Stirrings. He had heard the word before. He remembered that there was a reference to the stirrings in the Book of Rules, though he didn't remember what it said. And now and then the speaker mentioned it. Attention! A reminder that stirrings must be reported in order for treatment to take place. He had always ignored that announcement because he didn't understand it, and it had never seemed to apply to him in any way. He ignored, as most citizens did, many of the commands and reminders read by the speaker. Do I have to report it? He asked his mother. She laughed. You did, in the dream telling. That's enough. But what about the treatment? The speaker says that treatment must take place. Jonas felt miserable. Just when the ceremony was about to happen, his ceremony of 12, would he have to go away someplace for treatment just because of a stupid dream? So I feel a lot of fear here from Jonas. Also, like, growing up, fear of what's coming. Jonas has a lot of fear in this, but there's a lot of rules. I'm still struggling to understand what's the relationship between Jonas's fear and the rules. And I feel like Jonas is afraid because of the rules, and the fear is trying to make him he's trying to follow the rules because he's afraid, and he's worried about this stirring thing. But all is actually well. But his mother laughed again in a reassuring, affectionate way. No, she said. It's just the pills. You're ready for the pills, that's all. That's the treatment for stirrings. Jonas brightened. He knew about the pills. His parents both took them each morning, and some of his friends did, he knew. So, okay, there's pills. It's not that big of a deal. It's just there's like a fear of the unknown with Jonas, also a fear that he'll break rules on accident. And it's interesting. So he takes a small pill, and then just like really side note, he goes to school. On his way to school, pedaling rapidly down the path, Jonas felt oddly proud to have joined those who took the pills. So he's overcome this. It's like he's getting more mature and he feels proud of himself. For a moment, though, he remembered the dream again. The dream had felt pleasurable. So it's like, Oh, and then the dream goes away. The feelings had disappeared. The stirrings were gone. So it just like makes me wonder. Jonas is clearly feeling attraction. But is attraction such a bad thing that the pills have to take it away? What else are they going to take away? So anyway, you can see what I wrote about my narrator in the beginning, in The Giver, what I thought about it, how I answered that question in my sample reading journal, which you can find by clicking on your reading journal. Oops, no. By clicking on your reading journal right here. I'll just have a link, and you can click there and see my sample, or it'll be in the assignment link. I'm going to write it right now. Haven't started writing it yet. So I'm just going to go copy. Oops. Paste. And then I'm going to put narrators, questions to ponder. Why did the author choose this narrator, and why is that perspective relevant to the meaning of the story? And then you could also choose to answer these questions. And then this, you can click here for a copy of the point of view. This is if you come to my sample. This is the one I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to write that. You guys watch the video, and then you can look at my sample. And thanks for doing this. I love your journal entries so far. Looking good.